Hi, and welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about how to interview for a data analyst or data scientist. Now, I'm not going to go into the specific question that you should ask, but more around if you're new to interviewing for a data analyst or data scientist, or you're not from an analytical background, what's the best way to hire a data scientist or data analyst? I've done a lot of hiring in my career, and I thought I'd share what I think has worked. Obviously, I've changed my approach over the years, and I've come to a formula, I guess, where I think it's a good way to hire a data scientist or a data analyst. And I use a three-stage approach. So the first stage is I do a quick 30-minute phone interview, okay? And the reason for that is, let's say I've gone through the CVs and I like someone, okay? The CV won't really tell you how good a fit they would be to your company, if they're the kind of person that you want to work with, if they're the kind of person who would get on with the rest of your team. So what I do is I organise a 30-minute interview first, and I typically do that. So if you're in charge of the team, do it, because you'll know your team and you'll know broader what your team wants, okay? So if you can't do it, then try and use someone very senior in your analytics or data team to do it, only because what you don't want to do is get someone who's hiring for that role. So let's say you're hiring a mid-level analyst and the senior person managing them. You don't want them to do the first interview, because all they'll be thinking about, can this person do that job? Okay, and trust me, I've asked people who said they would like to do the first interview because they're hiring for their team, or they're going to report into them, and I found it doesn't work. So try and get someone who's more senior than the person who'll be managing the person, or yourself if you are in charge of the team. So, and the reason I keep it half an hour is twofold. One is, that's all you really need in a phone interview to assess whether the person's a good fit, whether you'll get on with them, whether they're intelligent, smart, whether the answers they give to your questions around their work history, around their education, around the tools and knowledge that they have. You'll guess if they're good or not. Okay. The other reason I do half an hour is because, let's say after 10 minutes you think they're not good, okay? You can cut the interview off, okay? If it's 15 minutes in and you say, look, we're really good to speak to you, we'll get back to you, and then just put the phone up, it's fine, because it's half an hour, you've cut it short after 15 minutes, not a big deal. If you invite them in for an hour interview, okay, because typically you wouldn't invite them into an office for a half an hour interview, you typically do an hour interview. If they came in and after 10 minutes you weren't getting on with them, or just wasn't the right fit, you didn't feel good about it, cutting it short to 15 minutes feels really odd, and what you'll feel compelled to do is carry on until about 40 minutes, which is not a good use of either of your time. You just wasted both of your time. So half an hour call, get a good feel for them, ask them questions around their experience, their background, their education, what tools they use, that kind of stuff. Keep it very light. Don't go into too detail, because it's very hard to do on the phone, and you want to make sure that the dialogue is, because it's on a phone, that you ask the question, they answer, and then obviously give them an opportunity to ask some questions as well, because what they want to do is get over any barriers they have to taking this job if they do pass the interview. So, and that generally takes half an hour. If it takes 5 10 minutes more, that's up to you, right? You're on a phone call, neither of you have come all the way, or you haven't got another meeting to go to, then carry on another 10 minutes extra if you have to. Okay, so that's stage one. So if they pass, bring them in for stage two. If they don't, try and give feedback, okay? I have found that, yes, it's a lot of headache, and you have to, how do you give feedback by being very diplomatic about it, because you don't want to say things that will put people off from ever wanting to be a data scientist or a data analyst, but you still should be able to give feedback. So try and practice giving feedback. But anyway, if they pass and they come to stage two, I schedule an hour and a half interview. And the reason I do an hour and a half is because, in my experience, I've always scheduled an hour in the past, and I found that an hour is never enough, not what I want to cover. So if you schedule in an hour and a half and you finish after an hour, that's great. Everybody gets half an hour back in their diary. Or if you finish after an hour, 15 minutes, they get 15 back. But at least you've got that luxury of hour and a half, and everybody knows it's in their diary. Even the interviewees come in there, they know they've come in for an hour and a half, so they're not going to schedule something afterwards and have to rush off, okay? Now, in that second interview, you should at least have two people. Now, if you're going to be in that interview, if the team's small and you're going to be in that interview, then depending where you are, you need to bring in a second person, either technical or business. So if you're the business person in the team, where you are the person who sort of meets with stakeholders, understand what the question is, then try and get someone technical in, because you need to be able to ask those technical questions to the interviewee, okay? But if you're the technical person, if you're the person who does all the analysis and stuff, then bring someone in with a more business focus, so that they can then ask more of the broader questions around, how they would approach a problem, how they'd clarify things with stakeholders, see how they respond to those kind of questions. Ideally, bring a third person in if your team's big enough. The only reason I don't know what it is, but I found that whenever I've interviewed with two people, the transaction isn't as nice and fluid as if you've had three. I'm sure I haven't got any evidence for why that's better, but that's my experience. Try and bring three people in. So like I said, if you're part of it, then it'd be you and two other people, or one other person. If you're not part of it, then obviously have two or three other people in that interview. I mean, I don't generally do the second interview. I've got other members of my team who do the second interview. But yeah, like I said, I'll try and get the mixture between technical and business so that you've covered all the angles. So how is that second interview usually scheduled? So the way I do it is I give the person some data and I say to them, look, come back with 4 or 5 slides by presenting what you think is interesting that I should know about the data. Okay, I'll give them some context. I'll say this is retail data and it's got the date so they know it's either Christmas, or I think once we would give data around, let's say Easter or whatever, and they would just analyze the data and come back and let us know what it was telling them, okay, or what it, and then they would present back to us. And then, that presentation shouldn't be more than 15-20 minutes, and then spend about 10-15 minutes asking them questions around that presentation. Why did they choose that graph? Why did they analyze like that? Why do they do it on an hourly basis, not on a daily basis? Why do they clump it up to weekly and not hourly? Whatever you think. What you're trying to do ascertain is not that they got the data analysis right or wrong, but why they did what they did, okay? And that will give you a good idea of their thought processes and help you understand if they'll be very good at answering business questions or being able to think through at least how to answer a business question before embarking on the analysis journey. Then you want to spend about half an hour the actual proper interview, I guess, which is asking them about their experience, their background, what they've done, give examples of projects that they've worked on, any technical questions you want to ask. I don't like doing coding exercises in the interview. I think it doesn't really prove anything. I've found a lot of good analysts aren't very good on the spot coding. They like to Google answers, but they're very good at solving problems. So they can go off and they'll Google the answer and come up with the right analysis for the solution that we need. So I don't find they're very good. So ask questions around how they solve problems, to give examples of projects they worked in the past, maybe talk about end-to-end of a data project process, just because then to understand the end-to-end process of a data project, just so that you can understand if they know all of the components that go into making or delivering a data project. So that will take you up to just over an hour, and then you want to leave some opportunities, some general Q&A, and then obviously for them to ask you questions. Okay, so that you'll find will take you up to an hour and a half, and you should have a good feel by then whether you want to employ that person or not. Now, at this stage, if you wanted to employ the person, you could, okay? But what I do is I introduce a third stage, which is another face-to-face 1 hour interview. But this time what I do is I try and invite people from the wider business, okay? So if you're in a company and you've got other teams like the content team, product team, tech team, strategy team, sales team, marketing team, you've got lots of other teams in the business, you want to bring them in, okay? And you don't need them for the whole hour, so they might pop in for 10 minutes. So the interviewee comes in for an hour and you schedule 10 minutes per member of the team. So they come in, and the reason I do that is because you also want to see what the wider cultural fit is. As data analysts, it's very rare that you'll be sitting behind a PC just analysing numbers, okay? You will be expected to go out and speak to people, even if it's just to ascertain what the business questions are, okay? But often to present the finding. And so therefore, I'd like the person I'm hiring, because again, like I said, on the second interview, you've made the decision that they're good enough. So the third interview is really not to say no, but it's just more to validate your decision, but also to get them to meet other members of the team, but also other members of the company, but also for other people in the company to meet them. So that on their first day, when they join, they already know people outside of the data team, and that gives them a huge head start, but also confidence in terms of approaching other people. So that's why I do that third stage, and I think it's worthwhile doing. It's an hour for the interviewee to come in. You probably made a decision that you're going to employ them, so it's not that you're wasting their time, but it gives members of your wider organisation an opportunity to meet that person before you actually formally hire them. Okay, so that's it really. If you have any questions about this video, please do put them in the comment section below. Please also do ask any questions you have in the comment sections below, and I'll try and answer them. Please do like the video, and of course do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.